items that are on the agenda. Do we have any input from public at this time? Mr. Jaramillo.
My name is Horacio Jaramillo. I'm a parent. The item on the agenda, I believe, is discussion on PowerSchool.
Yes.
And do you need input, or do I just go into the follow-up, or do I come in at that point?
You can come in at that point.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. President, you did the board norms.
Okay. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Okay, I apologize. I missed a standing item that we have, which is the reading of board norms by the board. And number one is actively listen to all perspectives.
Also, Luke, responding to concerns and questions as a unified board.
Model the professionalism we expect from all members of the district and community, customer service orientation.
Assume positive intent.
And the last one is be positive and responsive. Okay, thank you. So we go to action items, and item A on that is the approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes to the agenda that the superintendent might want to propose?
Mr. President and board members, I'd like to remove 9A and 9C. Those are the only changes.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion for approval of the minutes reflecting the removal of 9A and 9C.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I have discussion. Can we also move concerns from high school staff up as well? Can we move it to?
Which item number is that?
It's 10A.
Are there any object?
I don't know where the best place to move it would be. Maybe after,
Probably after the student representative report.
okay. Yes.
Is that okay with you?
Yes.
Okay, then you agreed to amending your motion to have item number 10A moved to right after student report.
I amend my,
Okay.
I can't even think. I amend my motion
Okay. And are
to
you,
add,
will that be seconded?
Second.
All those in favor of moving the agenda items as described in the motion, signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, approval of the September 26th minutes.
I motion to approve the minutes of September 26th.
There's a motion. Is there a second? I'll second. Anyway, discussion.
I was just gonna say the minutes have improved greatly.
They have done well, and I think is she here?
Carissa.
Carissa is doing a much. Well, what happened was there wasn't really any template for her to work up, and we've been working on one, and that's coming around. But I still would like to see the minutes reflect the votes of 5 A's and no nays. She put down 4 nays. There was also an attachment that was supposed to be included in the audit committee report. And then there was the adjournment. It's basically left in the same language as the agenda, and so it just needs, the adjournment just needs to be the motion to adjourn, and then underneath it is the minutes. So, I mean, the time that it was adjourned, and that's all that's necessary there. But it is a vast improvement, and we're headed in the right direction. But so
Well,
I would-
and also, the date says Monday, September 24th. It should say September 26th.
I was going to mention that as well.
Oh, okay. Missed that. Okay. So, will the motion then be amended to include the revisions just discussed?
So amend my motion to make the revisions as
And I approve, I seconded and agree with that revision of the motion. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, now we go to approval of September 12th minutes. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
a motion to approve the minutes for September 12th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Is there any discussion?
This one was a vast improvement.
And I would agree, except for some following things. And that is item 20, the executive session. The part has, the motion is entertained by President Guadiana entertained a motion to go, to come out of closed session, and it should be go into closed session. And then the motion to come out is number 21. And then the same thing with the adjournment. So that just to signify the motion to adjourn and then the meeting. So with that, is there, the motion can be entertained to include those amendments or those changes? And the motion was made by
Me.
yourself?
So I'll amend my motion to entertain your changes.
And the second,
Second.
all those, any further discussion on the minutes?
I'll get the signature pages that are missing also. Both of them.
Okay, well, the signature pages don't need to be part of the minutes. They're the action that we can take after the approvals.
Okay.
So, all those in favor of approving the minutes with the amendments made, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries, the motion unanimous. Let's see. Okay. Item D, approval of bills. Is there recommendation for the approval of bills?
I didn't attend the finance meeting, but Mr. Terrazas or Mr. Ryan might be able to give us.
Okay, but at this point, the recommendation would come from the superintendent for the approval of bills, and then we'll go into discussion.
That's a new one, but I'll make the motion to approve the bills. Usually it's
No,
the
not-
chair.
not-
Usually
not-
it's the chair.
Not approve the bills, but make the recommendation.
I make the recommendation to approve the bills from September 16th to September 29th.
Okay, is there a motion?
So,
I'll make a motion that we approve the bills as presented.
As second,
Second.
is there any discussion?
Mrs. Begay had provided me with notes from the meeting, and there wasn't any concerns that she noted about the approval of bills.
Where are we in the status of the approval of the legal, the bills by Cuddy and McCarthy?
That's the next item on the agenda.
Okay. So that's not included in this motion then?
No.
Okay, so then, is there any discussion on the approval of the items, the bills that we're paying this for that period? Having no motion, I'll entertain a motion to have a vote now for approval of the bills. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Okay. Now we shall go with this next item is not related to the Cuddy McCarthy bills.
No, it's not.
So going back to the discussion.
It's on 5A, I'm sorry, it's 5A.
Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, the next item is the approval of a contract from Wells Gallegos and Associates to provide legal counsel services. And I reviewed, let's see, is there a motion to, or do you recommend the approval?
So in your packet, there's a procurement process with the evaluation, and I recommend that we go with that RFP to approve the contract with Walsh and Gallegos.
Is
so
it-
I'd like to make a motion to approve the contract with Walsh, Gallegos and Associates to provide legal counsel services.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Discussion. And I'd like to mention that I was on that committee to review the RFP responses, and Gallegos was the only one that submitted a response to the RFP. And in that, we looked at the previous contract with it, and their hourly rates increased within 5%, which is not bad considering inflation is now at 8%. We had no objections, and it met all the criteria that was specified in the RFP. So I also support the adopting this contract. So all those, is there any further discussion? All those in favor of accepting the contract, awarding the contract to Walsh and Gallegos for legal services, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. No, in the absence of any votes for opposed, the motion passes unanimously. Now to schedule a workshop to finalize the superintendent's evaluation. For that, we should do that before the next meeting so we can report on that for the next meeting and the dates. The 19th, we have. Does the board have preference of doing that in an afternoon,
Yes. Or evening.
evening? What hours specifically? We're looking at like, again, the same time as the meetings, 5 o'clock?
Yes.
5 o'clock. Is there a day that anybody has preference to or cannot attend on such day? Then I would recommend that we use the following Monday,
17th.
the 17th.
Well, we have a finance meeting at 4:30. If it just lasts for an hour, we could do it at 5:30.
Is that amenable to you? Okay, so we're looking at Monday, 5:30. And that is superintendent's evaluation document. And this will not be to evaluate the superintendent. That would be done in closed session. This is only to discuss the content of the evaluation itself and the measures that we'll use to assess his performance. What's that? Yes. It is open to the public, and it will be announced as such 3 days prior, and we'll have the agenda will simply be to be limited only to the finalizing of the superintendent evaluation.
So, Mr. President, would you like me to bring the document that we went over? And then there were 6 other items that we discussed last time.
Yes. And let's see, we have the document from the state, and is that the one that you're talking about?
I was talking about the one in our board policies on evaluation.
Yes, and then there's one also from the state that we received. Did you include that one as well? Okay, then will somebody make a motion for having this meeting at 5:30 on the 17th?
I'll make a motion to have the board workshop to finalize superintendent evaluation on Monday, October 17th at 5:30 PM in the admin office.
Yes. Is there a second? There's a second. Any discussion? Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously as well. Okay, that brings us now to item number 6. Review of policies, section B of the school board governance options. And that is equivalent to the 100s of, section 100s of the current policy. I compiled the listing of the policies that we looked over, but we didn't do 5 of them. So we will continue on with finishing those on Tuesday, tomorrow. And then we will put this back on the agenda for the approval. The process is that we are redoing all our policies, and we're adopting the policies that are set forward by the State School Board Association. And that is a major shift. Doesn't represent our old policies at all. So we're going through each one painstakingly so. And we are now completed with the 100s, and we're going to ask to have those approved so we can put them into place. The original concept was that we were going to go through all of them and then have them all approved at one time, but that would take us well into next year. So we're going to propose having this done. So I would entertain a motion to table this till the next meeting. Table the school board workshop to finalize, review of board policy, section B, school board governance operations, table to October 17th at 5:30 PM here at the district office. I entertain a motion.
The following Monday. October 17th is another workshop.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Actually, yeah, that would be the 24th. Thank you.
And would that be our first reading?
Yes.
Okay, and should that be stated in the agenda that it's the first reading of the policy?
Yes, it should. Well, actually, at this point, it'll be our review, our finalization agreement with the changes, and it still requires the council's review.
Okay.
So it'll be a presentation of that in terms of where we are with the status, and the following meeting can be our first reading of the policy. And when we come to the state of the first reading, that'll be when they're all posted on the website and available for comment for that 2-week period between the meeting, and then it'll be posted again. I mean, it will be, we'll enter our second reading, which is again, providing everybody the opportunity to comment on that. And then finally, there'll be the adoption, so 4 weeks after the first reading. So a move to table.
I'd like to make a motion to table review of board policies until October 24th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, the votes in favor of rescheduling the item G till the next meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, now we're into student representative report. Okay. Ms. Gegg.
Good afternoon, Board President and board members and Superintendent Spalletta. I haven't heard much from the students lately, except for Mr. Marshall is wanting to do a extra credit thing where they will write a business letter to the board, and then was wondering if then I could present it to you guys, if that would be all right. And I was also wondering if, other than that, there's nothing really else about the school that I would want to present right now. But I was wondering if my email would be needed for anything, because just like to be able to get in contact with me.
Yeah,
for
we
teachers.
discussed that a couple of weeks ago, a couple of meetings ago, and
I
certainly.
don't know if anyone got it.
It's on the website.
Oh, okay,
And it was
awesome.
posted on Facebook.
Awesome. Okay. I was
Okay,
just making sure.
that's okay. So explain to me the extra credit thing again, a little bit more.
Yes. So, Mr. Marshall, our English teacher, is wanting to be able to have the students write a very formal business letter about topics that they're either concerned about or just want to speak more about. And then I would go over, read them before, just to make sure, and then present them to you guys.
Okay. And that would be to have to be considered for
Extra
restructuring something or just for the extra credit itself?
extra credit, yes. And
Okay.
then just so that they have a voice and I'm able to voice some of their opinions for them.
Okay. Is there any other comments?
I was gonna say, if the student actually wants to come and read them, I would be okay with that as well.
Oh, of course. And I would always, I could probably ask the student and see if they're willing to do that.
Public speaking.
And I'd like to commend you in that because the more involvement that we get, especially with the students, the more effective we'll be and the more the communication is broadened. So that's a very good strategy to do that.
Yes, sir. That's why I thought it was a really great opportunity for the students when he brought it up.
Very good. That's very good. And tell them we appreciate that as well.
Mhm.
You brought, last time you were here, you brought up an issue about a dietary in terms of the food. Have you seen any change?
Recently, I haven't heard much from Mr. Spoleto. Also conducted like a student where we answer some questions that he had up, and one of the biggest answers to what needs to change about Cobre is dietary plans. Sometimes the portions are too small for high school kids, and none of the students exactly consider it to be healthy. But so far, I haven't seen or heard anything about lunches or breakfasts running out anymore.
Along those lines, because of the Open Meetings Act, we really can't take that issue to any kind of resolution or open discussion. But I will put that on the agenda for the next meeting for which there can be that discussion and the public will know and participate in it if they so choose.
Thank you.
Okay, now we are going to go to item 10A, which is concerns from the Cobre High School staff.
Good evening, board, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Spoletta. I brought this to the attention of our staff. Basically, we're all members of the same community. People know people, word gets around. And one of the things when I was at a social engagement was brought to me, how do you teach at Cobre High School? One of the worst places you could probably teach. And I was just floored. And I told them, well, what do you mean? Well, according to the board, there's cliques at Cobre High School. It's not a friendly environment. It's a hostile environment. Children are in fear. There's bullying running rampant. Can't even think of the other things. But it was a whole list. And I thought, oh, I thought it was a pretty great place. I've taught at Cobre High School for 16 years, 33 years with the district. I approached the board members and asked for an audience. I shared the information I got from them with my faculty and staff. And at first, all of them were like, oh yeah, we're going to be there. We'll support you. We'll support you. Little by little, people started trickling out. And I asked, give me a statement. Give me a statement. Our teachers are in fear of what's being said about them. And what we want to do is we want to invite you guys to come and see our school, to come and see what's going on. Be visitors, be visible. I know you have jobs. I know you're busy. But if you could come. A lot of the things they brought up was the bullying. You know, they said that there was a lot of bullying. We're not at liberty to say what the bullying was, but that there was some severe bullying going on and that involved employees of the district and their children. I couldn't discuss them. Mrs. Monroy wouldn't discuss them, but I No, we had a bullying coordinator at one time. Why wasn't that taken care of with the bullying coordinator? You know, those things like that, you could visit with Mrs. Montoya and ask her what actions were taken and what actions weren't taken to visit as far as that. Discipline, we feel that we're being supported. We don't have, we can't say we don't have any discipline issues at Cobre High School, but 99% of the time, if we do have a discipline issue, we are supported and it's taken care of fairly. You know, the teacher feels supported. Years past, and there's a few of us who have been here for several years, kid could come and read me upside down, inside out, tell me where to go and what to do. And they'd come back to class. They said to tell you sorry. We don't have that. We do have discipline. We do have support. The other one was a clique, that there's cliques at Cobre High School. And I was just like, well, am I in the clique or am I out of the clique? Because I don't know about the clique. But most of our teachers work well together. You know, we work well, we work together, we collaborate, especially now, you know, we have advisory, which they say is new. Well, 16, 17 years ago, we had advisory and we used to collaborate. We used to develop lessons. They would give us once a week to where we would have a chance to meet with our group, and each teacher would develop a lesson and we would share that lesson. It would be cross-curricular and everyone would teach that lesson. So it's the same thing that we're doing now, but it's old becomes new, you know. And what we're looking at, like you said, you know, there were lots of teachers who said, oh yeah, I'm going to be there. There's fear of reprisals. You know, they want approachability from you guys. They want approachability from the superintendent. We just don't want, there's a drop in communication too. We don't want that, you know. It's kind of hard. I'm in the middle of something and I get an email. Can you send me something? Can you do this? Can you do that? And it's like, that takes up of my teaching time. If it can be approached just by communicating instead of going from here to here to here, it would be more effective. Another thing that was brought up was math EOCs. It was reported that our math department didn't do very well because the seniors failed their EOCs. Last year, seniors weren't made to take EOCs. So of course they failed because nobody took them. We were told that seniors did not have to take EOCs. That was brought up. Input put in from athletics. Our kids, and you all know, you all live in this district. We buy from football, basketball, volleyball, heat club. Everybody's selling something to raise money. This year, apparently, athletics is asking for $500 from each athletic department to put into a general fund. And that's money the kids raise. That's money that the kids raise for their equipment, you know. I know Albuquerque, Los Lunas, all those places, parents have to come up with thousands of dollars for whatever it is, homecoming, prom, things like that. We raise money for everything. We raise money for graduation. We raise money for prom. We raise money for uniforms. We raise money for everything. Now, I'm saying uniforms. I don't know how it's changed. I used to be the cheerleading sponsor. And back then, cheerleading wasn't considered in athletics. So we had to buy our own uniforms. Key Club has to buy their own things, pay their own admissions fees, buy their own t-shirts. NHS has to buy their own stoves, their own boards, their own t-shirts. All that we do, our public service, our community service departments, you know, Key Club is one, NHS is another. We raise our own money to do our activities. We raise the money that we have. Everything is student oriented and it is student supported. It's not from the district. The district doesn't give us the money. And those are things that are going on. And we invite you. That's what we want. You know, a lot of times, some employees said that they were told that if we miss more than 20 days, I've not heard it officially, but that they would be reprimanded for missing 20 days. Illnesses happen. Family members get sick. You know, that's one thing that they were afraid of. And it's our fault, we don't keep up with board policy, was a cap on our sick leave. We were not aware. If we looked it up and it was passed on, I want to say 2016, that employee would not have more than 180 days. For most employees, it's not that big a deal. For employees like me, I have the days. I've been here forever. But that could be donated to the sick leave bank. I know you're going through policy on the sick leave bank, and we'd like to see that, for your employees. Newer employees are having babies, things like that. And I know it's different now, that from what I understand, but things happen, illnesses happen, and that sick leave is just going away. I don't like to miss, and I'm here as much as possible. I lost what? I think we figured 4 days on my sick leave. There's an employee who lost 40 days. And when we approached the district, we asked them, when did this happen? And they said, it's in the employee handbook. And we said, well, what employee handbook? We haven't seen an employee, well, I haven't seen an employee handbook in 33 years. It was in policy, and like I said, it's our fault for not keeping up with policy since 2016. Let's see. Another thing was, you're talking about the superintendent's evaluation. Years past, starting with Dr. Ana Perez, and those of you who are here, she allowed teachers to have input on the superintendent's evaluation. When we did have Mr. Mendoza, he also had, just the first year, we had input. We had input the first year, and then after that, we didn't have it. Ms. McCauley sent me a list of things that she and her science department do. And she put that both science teachers at Cobre High School are advisors for extracurricular and after-school clubs. Dr. Ludicky works with students who are interested in healthcare careers. Mrs. McCauley is the MESA advisor. Mr. Ludicky, or Dr. Ludicky, is helping the students on what he calls a precursor term paper, which teaches them scientific investigation for those of them that want to go into the medical field. Mrs. McCauley has cross-curricular activities that she coincides with either Spanish or English or even PE. The list goes on and on. She does team, I don't know if you would call it team teaching or correspondence with P&M, where it's a joint collaboration where they do energy saving techniques. P&M provides her with $100, well, it depends on how many kids she gets to participate, either $100 gift card for her class, $150 to $200. One year, during COVID, she included all of us, and several teachers were able to benefit from that. And P&M sent home kits with energy saving activities and energy saving equipment for them. All we want is to have an open communication with you guys, have an open communication with Dr. Scaletta, keep things going. Like I said, we're not a bad place. We do care about kids. And it's like I tell everybody, there's 2 ways to go. Silver's down the road, Denny's down the road. My cousin teaches in Silver, my cousin teaches in Denny. I'm at Cobre because I choose Cobre. We want to be here. Do you have any questions for me?
And for the record, this is Ms. Yeager. She's
sorry.
no,
I'm
that's
sorry.
okay. That way we can note that in the minutes as well. Anybody want to start off with questions or comments?
Not questions, but do you have and I've asked this before, do you have a full PTO or anything like that?
No.
I don't have a child at the high school, but I'd be interested in helping you out. So if I don't know how to function through that, or because I know, like, we were talking about it, a lot of PTOs, what's really good about it is that if you could have board, you can actually file for a nonprofit. And so through a nonprofit, you can actually fund some of the things that you're doing. And so it might take like a year, but you could get grants through the nonprofit for science, for the band, for stuff like that. And so, like, I know, like, the large companies do give grants to nonprofit organizations. So if you had a huge project, like Freeport gives community grants, through our PTO, we could get funding for small grants, but it would, so if you're.
I'd be interested, even when my daughter was here, I was NHS sponsor and I was class sponsor and I was a parent. And I would help out with P Club because my daughter was in P Club. I would help out other places. And it would be great. It would be great because, you know, parents are hardcore. If your son's a football player, they're in there and they'll fundraise for anything. It's our other clubs that don't get the support.
And I think even too, it's like, even as you know, Cobre has a long history, but even like starting an alumnus club, you know, like they do at Western.
I wouldn't do that.
Well,
I do
but
the
what I'm-
PTO.
But what I'm saying is
Yeah.
that could like lead into that. And so
Into
like
that,
if
yeah.
you're saying like, you know, we have like they do yearly and have like the dinners and the donations and then this goes to this and Key Club and band, choir, whatever, theater or whatever needs the functioning. It's just, I think that, you know, as a community, we could do so much to support what's going on in Taiwan with a small school district.
I'd appreciate that information.
And you have my information, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you for coming and advocating for yourself and your staff and clarifying for me because I had not heard anything bad about Cobre High. The people I know that work there, they love it. They say everyone's doing their best. So I personally had not heard anything bad. I understand the fear of retaliation for speaking up. That's been present in our district for a while. And I recently, I guess there was discussions in schools about following the chain of command. But I think it needs to be made known, if you fear the chain of command, you are always welcome to email the board. Because I've been in that situation where I felt I wasn't heard and I was retaliated against for speaking up for my students. And so please, students, staff, parents, please reach out to us because if you don't, we don't know about it and we can't make it better. And I get frustrated when I hear that students have to raise their own money for everything because I know I was doing that in my classroom, you know, selling water bottles for 50 cents to raise money to get books. And that's one thing being on the finance committee. I hope we can tighten our belts and be able to give our students the monetary support that they deserve. So thank you again.
Thank you. And I wanted to meet with all of you. I know some of you individually contacted me and said, please call me. But I wanted everyone to be involved and we wanted everyone to be aware. So I didn't return them. But I appreciate it.
Anything to hold on for? Is there any other comments?
Yes, I also wanted to say thank you, of course, because as Cobre High School students, we have often heard a lot of bad things said by other schools about Cobre High School, and we often don't understand it because we also really enjoy Cobre High School. Of course, it's our school. Even though we do believe that there are some things that could change or be fixed, we are willing to help fix it. So thank you.
And I certainly have comments. I am very glad and I was very involved in kind of containing a lot of the inertia that you had started, wanting to meet with all of us, but that's prohibited under the Open Meetings Act. And so I appreciate that you've entertained the part of coming to the being on the agenda and allowing this discussion to be two-way. We would have come in under public input, it would have been a one-way conversation and we couldn't engage in this, but I appreciate this opportunity because having been on the previous board and on this board, it is clear there is a major difference about the support to the for the teachers. You're well represented here in the people that have been in that vocation and are in that vocation more than most school boards. And I really think that's a step in the right direction. There was a lot of negative comments that went on throughout the last administration, and I myself being one of the major people that articulated that. And there have been circumstances that we have an exodus of teachers. We've been losing teachers by somewhere around 20%. We have an exodus of students. Our enrollment has dropped down considerably. And it's not that they're moving away, they're going to a different school. there are issues that are that we have to face. Teachers, by a large part, are not that issue. Teachers are the ones that we're finding are not getting the level of support that we're committed to get to, and we will. There was even the salary structure is evidence of that, and the fact that we can't afford to give you anything that's notable in salary schedule is systemic of some of the priorities that were held by the previous administration. That's no longer the case. We'll work diligently to get that. We will work to support you. We will work to stop this exodus. We will work to give you guys the tools that you need. We're proposing things like a dashboard to be present or visible for all schools to show where we are in student success as well as where we are in student challenges. And the intent of that dashboard not only is to identify where it is we need to change, but to finance those changes that need to be made and to give you guys the resources to do that. So I am very proud to be on this board and to see it moving in this direction. I'm disheartened a little bit that the appearance of the things that we're trying to remedy are things that we are disparaging about. No, those are things that we're going to try to correct. And we don't see teachers in that formula of correction. We see that in our focus of making more successful and reaching to the students. Okay. And do you have any comment?
No, I mean, we're going to be there to support the school completely.
We'd like to see the union contract coming up. We are we're anticipating that. Matter of fact, I think I may be attending one of the meetings to see how that's going.
Please let us know in writing.
Okay, I shall. But I am excited about the direction we're going, and I'm glad you're here. And I hope you can communicate to others that there's some misperceptions and there's some reality. And not all of it is good, but we're going to work to make it that way.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Meeker.
President, as far as I see this, I am able to be recognized on a topic.
Yes, and this part is our public input is prescribed under our agenda. And as president, I have the discretion to recognize people. And so I will use that discretion. Yes.
Again, my name is Horace Jaramillo. I am a parent and an equal partner in the Cobre School District. I want to commend you for breaking the ice. I do have concern about the environment at Cobre High School. I've seen it, and I would hope that we all jump on board as equal partners to make things better. And I think the teachers, what they're trying to tell you is lead us, but lead us like you need us. You follow?
Yes.
Because if you lead them like you don't need them, we're going to lose them. We're going to lose the structure of an organization. And I learned this from risk management. Always lead them like you need them. Your comment is very welcoming because it does trickle out to the students.
Absolutely.
I've heard the students. They go home. It's felt by the parents. Now the parents aren't here. A lot of teachers aren't here. But I am here. I am here as a partner. I feel we're equal. I'm equal to Mr. Spaletta, to the board, to the teachers, to the parents, to the students. And I hope that I get invited to the tour if it's going to develop as an equal partner, because I am very concerned about the environment. And not that it's going to improve my child's grade, but I'm going to do everything possible to eliminate any barrier that my child would have in education. So I hope for an invitation to be an equal partner in that visit. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up because there is a schedule already for us to go out and start going to the schools. So I can certainly let you know when I'm on that schedule, and you're welcome to accompany me if you'd like.
Come in, interact with the students.
Okay. Okay. And the other part too is that certainly this is a good precursor to doing a PTO, which we should be looking at starting at all schools. Is there any other comment from the board or from students?
No, and I know we've made attempts to schedule, but everybody's schedule has been busy, and I know Dr. Spilletta and I have talked, and either something comes up on my end or something comes up on his end to be able to attend the high school and the junior high and all the elementaries. So we will definitely put that on our radar screen. Just elevate it to one more.
I think we've got most of them scheduled. Have you received your schedule?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I've received the invitation and acknowledged it.
I have a question. Are board members allowed to go to these schools without the superintendent if we contact the principal and ask if we can stop in? I know this week I'm on fall break, so this is probably going to be the only week.
I'm not sure what
I
our
can
policy
go in.
says, but I don't have any problem with that.
And I know the past practice has been, if you have the approval of the superintendent to do that, then that would go. Okay, that moves us into unfinished business. So, let me, before I start, move there, is there any other comment from the audience that would like to be made on that agenda item? Okay, then we'll go on to unfinished business and status of unpaid bills from the previous council, which was Cuddy and McCarthy. I reviewed pages and pages of the council's invoices. And the issue at present is any payment that was made on behalf of any employee, any school board member that was being affected by the recall. And there's a number of different venues to look at in terms of what activity participated to that. Some of them were very candid. It had recall on the invoice. And what I totaled out was roughly $32,000 worth of funds spent that way. We have sent that to the law firm of Cuddy and McCarthy, and have we received a response?
No responses, no. Three times we have sent request to fix that.
Okay, so that will continue as something that we will remain unpaid until such time that we do hear a response. And this is not an action item. It's just where we are in the process of reviewing those invoices. Is there any other comment to make on that item? Do you have anything? We're not received any more invoices, I take it. Very good. Man, that council no longer represents us as well. That was taken care of in July. Anyway, now we'll move on to the elementary gym project.
So, Mr. President and board members, in your packet, there's a final architectural construction document. We're still waiting on the civil, structural, and MPE engineering drawings, but the architect should be collecting all of these plans by the 21st of this month. We're going to meet with the architect on the 26th. There's a few different documents that we need to complete in the meantime, a RASC form. And then we also need to start selecting a contractor through CES. They've asked us for a geotech report, which is normally done at the beginning of the project. So I'm going to work on getting that completed also. And then there's about 12 additional questions they've asked us as final plan questions. So we should have our final construction document at the end of this month.
And that's stamped and signed?
Stamped, yes. So I will be bringing this to the finance committee also at the next meeting too.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Dr. Spalletta regarding this item?
So the construction documents should be done by the end of October. And
Yeah.
then we go out to bidding,
Yes.
which is 14 days at minimum. So when should we be expected to have construction begin?
Last meeting, I gave a timeline that he gave us, but I don't know other than we're gonna be looking for a CES contractor, so soon after that. Soon after we get a contractor.
Is there any other comments? There was an invoice that was provided in terms of what the anticipated costs are for the architect. And that was totaled out to be $61,000 and change. To date, I understand we have paid the architect $63,000. The architect's invoice was based on percentage, what they consider to be their cost related to each step of the project. And probably 3 of those steps have been done, but it was the entire process through completion that would have cost $61,000, and we're already at $63,000. So I would like some assurance that that cost is contained in the bills that we've already been paid, that have already been paid, and that we not pay more. We've already paid $2,000 more than the $61,000 that he anticipates, although there might be some things that might have increased that cost. But we have probably 2 years of delays, and that seems to have come in as a cost for making the presentations, which would have been maybe half a dozen of presentations to that effect, which was just a regurgitation of the reasons that things couldn't go forward, which what I've seen as a board member would not reflect any basis for $61,000 of compensation for what we've received. So I would hope that the finance committee could take a look at that in the next meeting and make sure that we are in agreement as to what is going to be coming forward and how much more we need to pay.
I'd like a point of order. It's actually 66,000 that is on the proposal. The 61,000 is the base plus the New Mexico GRT.
Okay. So not having included the GRT, the grocery cheese tax. So, are there any more comments? You have any comments? And welcome, Mr. King, I can to step into into this area. The leadership in that is certainly lacking, and that was throughout the bond. And so we will hope to be tapping your expertise and making sure these things are done appropriately and within reasonable costs.
And I do have a question. It says invoicing will be based on the following percentages, and E is construction administration. So does that mean that after we pick a construction company, they would be overseeing them?
I asked that question today and the architect said no.
So what does construction administration mean?
I have no idea.
It's 20% of the services. And that's a big amount of money.
The estimated cost for the construction is a little over $1 million.
Right.
So that would be $200,000.
Right. So maybe if we could have some clarification on what construction administration is. And if after we receive our contractor, if we need to still work with this company.
Along those lines, Mr. Cannon, that would fall in your capacity, potentially?
Yes.
Okay.
And a clarification, in my experience, is the architect is basically the representative of the district. And they would I wouldn't use a strong word as oversee, but monitor what's going on, attend every meeting. And when the district has problems, we go through our architect as well as ourselves with the contract.
They would serve to ensure that things were done as the
Yes.
specifications
As
require.
according to the plans that we accepted.
Okay. Okay, there's any other comments? Okay, then we shall move on to the Central Water Project.
So, Mr. President and board members, in your packet, there's two proposals from the Deming Excavating Company. We met with the mayor, George Escada, and this company to look at the different options for the Central Water Drainage Project. And so our original cost was $32,300. By increasing the sizes of the pipes from 2 inches to 4 inches, there's another quote for $46,400. So this is something else that I'll bring to the Finance Committee next week to look at.
And there, any comment not at this point?
What would be the reasoning from going to 2-inch pipe to 4-inch pipe?
Speed of drainage. We're going to be building the elementary gym, and there'll be more drainage into the pond area.
I'd like to then chime in, and I want to express appreciation for George Esqueda, who participates in our Finance Committee. He took a look at this as well, and the comments that we have on the invoice reflect his concerns. And there was a lot of discussion about what happens is if the existing piping for the drainage of the pond that's there at Central Elementary School is 2-inch. And that piping is fed by a pump, and the pump only has a 3/4 inch discharge, which would make it seem like it's ample for even growth to take place. And it's questionable as to whether the 4-inch pipe would be needed. So in the next meeting, I've asked George to see if he could get the information as to the discharge of any larger pump that we might consider, and to see if that would be contained within the 2-inch pipe that we already have or that's designed in. So that'll be an issue of further discussion, but it's my expectation so far, it looks like the 2-inch pipe might suffice, but we can look at that as we determine what a larger pump would discharge. And it is exclusively the water from that pump that goes through that pipe. It isn't any other like gravity drainage
Right.
from that. Okay, so at this point, are we at the point where we need to make, no, this isn't an action item, so that will be
I have a
discussion.
question. So with the pump, so that would mean, 'cause from what I understand before, someone has to go out there and manually turn on this pump. So that would still be the same? They would have to go on and turn on this pump for it to go down these new pipes?
It should have a float, or at least, where's the detail?
Maybe in the future, we could do additional upgrades to that pump system, but this, right now, we're just looking at the drainage. This is money that's coming from the highway department that we need to participate in. So that's just the scope of this project right now. In future upgrades, we can look at something automated.
So at this point, can we anticipate that this will be reviewed and finalized and then come up for consideration for awarding the contract?
Part of this pump project?
Yeah.
Well, that's not part of the scope of this project that we have with DOT. That's something that we would probably have to look at separately to upgrade the pump.
Okay, no, I meant in terms of the Deming firm.
Deming Excavation.
Yes.
Yeah, see that, once again, that's part of the scope of the project that we have ongoing with the highway department.
So
That
it's the
funding.
highway department that's overseeing this and we're just funding it?
Well, they're funding this
Yeah,
project.
And anything that's over that given amount, then we pick up
Yes, the
those costs.
district. Yes.
And the $32,000 is what it was allocated for.
Right.
So if it goes up to the $40,000
Well,
plus,
anything above that the state gives, it's up to the district. Their funding won't increase. We just have a set amount to work with from them.
okay.
And anything else, anything extra is on us.
I think we've been awarded 75% of the project.
Okay, and the selection of the contractor and the payment of the contractor will be approved through us or through CES?
Through us.
Through us? Okay, so that's what I was asking, if that's gonna, are we likely to see that at the next board meeting then for approval or?
And we'll have to get a timeline in place.
Okay. Okay. Are there any other questions?
Just common talking with George, you know, we got to prepare for the future. Going to the existing 2-inch. If this gym turns around and we opt to go to a full gym, there's other capacities at the school. So if we have the money allocated for that would be the way to go, prepare for the future. Instead of 5 years down the road, hey, we need some more capacity. Why don't we do it now since we've got 75% of that allocated to us? So that's the concept there.
That, and that's agreed, but the capacity right now is a 3/4 inch line feeding 2-inch line, so the capacity still might be felt, even if the pump is increased, and that's where we're at.
So the 75% is of the 32,000. We go up to 46,000, we're going to be paying the difference. So we're going to be paying the 14,000 plus the 8,000 for the larger pipe size.
22,000, basically we'll be paying half of it then.
And there's also a note on here about rock refusal during bore will incur additional costs. So whatever that is.
What are the
Pretty
chances of
level.
hitting rocks in Central? Okay. If we're lucky. Okay. Okay, so we'll move on now to the Finance Committee report.
Well, I didn't go to the finance committee report last Monday.
And so,
Nothing really, Frank, just chime in there. Nothing really was majorly discussed.
No, we discussed, we did have a pretty thorough discussion regarding salary schedules, how we would like to move in the future and putting those little bit of space in our salary schedules between not only education, but years of experience. We want to explore going both directions to really make our salary schedule more desirable. We had an in-depth discussion about that. And then we did talk a lot about the drainage project, which we just discussed right now. And that was pretty much the extent of our finance committee meeting last week.
regarding the salary schedules, are we talking only the certified staff or are we including non-certified staff?
We're going to look at everything, but right now our discussion is for certified staff. But we will be including all. But right now, the issue that we have with our current salary schedule for certified staff is the increments for years of service and increments for education. We want to increase those. So that's what our discussion was. We're looking at.
Okay, and I understand that you had mentioned that you had obtained salary schedules from different schools that we could use as guidance for.
Yes, so we did review schools that are comparable to the Cobre district as well, and just try to be level and where we wanted to put those numbers. We came up with a figure, and Ms. Davis is going to be working on that to be able to present to us, see what it's going to look like.
She's finished it, so we have a few more things to do to know the total cost for certified staff, but we're going to do that for all of the salary schedules.
Well, my concern is I heard there were salary schedules from like Hatch and some schools, districts on the east side of the state. And that's not who we're losing teachers to. We're losing teachers to closer districts. And so even though they might not be the same size, I think we have to look at those numbers because that's where teachers are going.
And the budget side of that is, where does that fall? And so there's the discussion that still is in the works, and it's being advocated to provide the highest level we can. And so we will, that's our direction that we're going to go. So moving on, then we'll go to the human resources report. And there's no audit committee report because we didn't have a meeting yet. We're meeting once a month, not as often as the finance committee meeting. So human resources, Ms. Davis.
Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Spiletta. Just an update on PowerSchool. We had a presentation our last board meeting in regards to our grade book. I sent out correspondence to the principals to have discussion with their teachers about how to do the grades in the grade book and to have their mentor teachers meet with the new staff to walk them through on how to post grades and ensure that. And also they have a tech person at each one of the schools to also get them involved. And if not, to have me come to the schools and walk them through. They're still having trouble on how grades should be posted. And also if they're creating a course and they're not putting in grades and they're just going in there and putting missing or doing that they should not publish them, because then as parents, you're looking at it as an assignment that hasn't been turned in. And so there is those functions on the grade book that teachers can wait to publish until all the grades are put in. And then if it is missing, they do have the option of putting in they're missing, or if they're absent, to put in absent. That way the parents can exactly know, was my child absent? If these grades are posted, yes, it's a missing assignment, but also to hold off when they're going to publish them and not to create them beforehand and publish them. And then you're thinking, well, this assignment's not done and it's actually not due for another week, and you're like getting onto your child. So hopefully that will resolve that. And like I said, I let the principals all know that I'm willing to come out and help them if they need to as well.
This item came up at the last meeting, and it was presented by Mr. Jaramillo. And do you have any comments that you'd like to add at this time?
Horace Jaramillo, again, parent. Thank you, Mr. President, board members. You know, this is a working tool that is functional. It is a resource that's going to help keep track of your child's progress, but it also can be a nightmare for a teacher. And that's what I've seen, is because I continuously have to be bothering a teacher from her many assignments to see if it's actually a missing assignment and why is it flagged as an F. The other entry that can be put in is if that assignment, and it falls on the shoulders of the student. If my child, for example, says, I'm waiting for it to be graded, but there is an option for the teacher to say no longer accepted, then I know that it falls on the shoulders and responsibility of the student. He didn't fulfill his obligation. But if he continuously comes to me and says, it's missing, but the teacher hasn't graded it, you know, chances are I'm going to be calling the teacher and say, why aren't you grading? But that's not the fact. So the program does allow, and I've researched it, it does allow for entries that is going to be beneficial to the parent and also the teacher, mainly the teacher, because she's got other assignments to take on and not take away from the task of having to respond to an email. So I'm hoping that I can come with a follow-up, and I don't approach it as a complaint. I think it's a resource for us all to use PowerSchool. Last year I had 2 students. I was fishing between what is it, class? Yeah, and when there's seven teachers, and there's 4 assignments per teacher, and you multiply that by 2 students. By the time I go and fish through both of these programs, I even get lost and see what I'm actually looking for. So if we can singly just say, this Power School is gonna be it, and I know exactly where I am, I know where my child is, and I know where the teacher is. So I'm hoping that is a working tool and only to get better.
Thank you, Mr. Hadmi.
Mr. President, if I can also say, I know that early on in the year, principals were directed to let their teachers know that grades should be posted on a weekly basis. Because even with that, I have to store grades. And even today with storing grades, I have phone calls of people saying, Ms. Davis, can you store at a later date? Because we still haven't put all our grades in. And so I know that, teachers have a lot on their plate, but there's also time frames. So you are aware of how the child is doing before grades are stored and report cards come out. You don't want to know last minute that they are failing something. So again, it's just going back and having our principals talk to the teachers and getting those grades out to you in a timely manner and everything. So we'll send correspondence again as a reminder that grades should be posted on a weekly basis to make you aware of where your child is at.
Okay, and at any point, I do suggest that you put it back on the agenda so we can see if it's progressing. Positive. Thank you, thank you.
Okay, and I would like to point out that it is an extremely useful resource, and I appreciate your comments so that we can make it consistently valuable and not problematic. Along those lines, Ms. Davis, I'd like to ask is, have you put together a hard copy directions of what needs to be done? And I ask this because it's almost impossible to make sure everybody attends the trainings and gets the same amount of information from the trainings.
I actually don't. I would have to get a teacher's login for a gradebook because I don't have access per se on my side. I just do the builds for this for the district,
Mhm.
and so I per se don't have a grade book to do that. So I'll have to see if maybe PowerSchool has something that they have, or if I can use one of the teachers' grade books and I can kind of do a snapshot of what needs to happen. Then I'll be happy to do that because I know I've done other things with PowerSchool to give people guidelines, like for our secretaries, this is what needs to be on this page or this page and things like that. So we can get something like that.
Yeah, and I think documented versions provide a great deal of consistency, and I appreciate the direction we're going. Thank you very much. Are there any other comments from board members? Okay, now we'll move on to Special Education Director report.
Okay, the first document that I have shared with you is for the SPED teacher FTEs. And that is for the whole district. So that's what currently we have throughout our district. It's this document that shows, that has 38 SPED students, teacher one's caseload and their total FTE, teacher 2, teacher 3. And so I just went through and numbered them in sequential order and then highlighted the number at each breaking point for each total number of students, and then the teachers, the staffing, and then so forth. Okay. So total to date, I ran query today. We have 215 students with IEPs, 3 gifted students, and 21 articulation only students. So when you subtract those, that leaves 191 SPED students that need special education instruction and or related service support.
What was the last number you gave?
I subtracted the 21 and 3 from the 215, so left with 191.
Mhm.
So it's highlighted at the bottom of the page, the end of the document. FTEs range from like 0.65 to 1.06 amongst teachers. So as you can see, we're adequately staffed with FTEs, special ed teachers, and for the levels that our special ed students are displaying. And I broke that down with each level. So if a teacher had 13 students, I indicated how many level 1, 2, 3, and 4, okay, to figure out the FTE.
Are there any comments from, or questions from the board?
Just a suggestion. Just when we get packets, could we have like a timeline before we get like data like this, just so we can review it prior
Yes.
to the meeting?
Right.
Sometimes I'd like to like do some research or look into it, and so it allows me to gather questions or information.
Right, and this is the same data that I submitted, I think, last month or August 22nd. So it's the same data that was pulled, minus maybe, I think there was a decrease in students at SNAL. Last time I reported, it was 64, and now we're down to 61. Everywhere else seems pretty consistent. I think maybe Bayard lost a student, but yes. And when I was notified as well too, I think it was Thursday that I had to do this. So I started pulling data. We're in the middle of our reporting period as well. So pulling reports and changing reports is a little bit cumbersome during this time, but sure, that would, and I can also do a follow-up. So that way that'll give you time to review, and if you have questions, then you can answer. Mhm.
And in the quick view of the memo that you provided from the State Public Education Department, on page 2, there's LEA determination. And the second paragraph says, for LEAs that we found to have non-compliance with compliance indicators, and there's a slew of them, this letter serves as official notification of non-compliance. Can you kind of,
Right, so this is my second item on my report. I think on the agenda, I had to report on staffing, compliance issues, and equity counsel.
okay.
So if we're done with the staffing FTEs, I'll go on to the.
Any other questions on the staffing?
So I know teachers receive accommodations and modifications for their students. Are teachers aware of how many minutes of services their students should be provided? For example, if I taught English at Snell Middle School, would I know that my student, John Smith, needed 120 minutes of services, and so I should expect to have an aide in there for 120 minutes a week? Are teachers aware of that?
I don't know if the case managers have notified the students, but they should. The case managers are the go-to person in the building that should notify any regular ed staff of accommodations or, times like that. So I don't think that the regular ed teacher has a copy per se of, particular parts of the IEP except the accommodations and modifications page. So I will get clarification on what exactly is shared, but it is the case manager's responsibility to notify the teacher teams.
Okay, so that should be uniform across the district, that
It should.
teachers know that this student should have an aide for so many minutes a week. Because as educators, we are also responsible for implementing the IEP.
If that is the case in that class, yes.
Okay.
To go on to the compliance of things, I was not sure about what compliance points I was supposed to report on. What I pulled was every year we have an annual determination letter. This one was dated last October for the school year before. The memo should be coming out soon. It's going to be 40-day. So this was last year's memo for 2021. So this year's memo should come for 21-22 any minute now. But what I wanted to do and why I provided this is because I didn't want to have anything to present for this. If you look at page 2. So page 1 is what they use for making determinations to determine a district status. If you look at the LEA determination for Cobre schools, it says that based upon a comprehensive review of the LEA's data and information, Cobre Consolidated Schools is assigned an annual determination of meets requirements for the 2021 school year. So what that does is every year we have to meet performance indicators on different data that is pulled. And at any time, 40-day, 80-day, 120, end of year, if flags are generated, we have a 10-day turnaround, 10 days to correct it, resubmit, or say, yes, it is a finding and this is what we have to, what we did to correct it. If something goes unaddressed, then by the end of the year, it becomes a compliance issue. And then that could affect funding. So to date, we have 0 compliance issues. And so, we'll just go from there. Again, 40-day date is Wednesday, the 12th. Ms. Davis will close PowerSchool. We'll submit data to STARS. If any flags come up during that time within that 10-day period, we work diligently to look at the corrections. Was something overlooked? Again, it's a lot of different things that goes into effect and a lot of different factors that we have to consider. So it's a pretty tedious and involved process. But as far as official word on compliance, that's the only document I have, to present at this time. When the annual determination letter comes for last school year, I will make the same presentation and present that to you.
The items that were identified in this one as non-compliant at that time, can you kind of give us an overview of what that would entail? The 4B, 9, 10, 11, 13?
Which one are you looking at, Mr.
That
President?
first sentence in the second paragraph under the heading of LEA determination.
Oh, compliance indicators 9.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm not sure what 9 is. 10, 11, and 12 are referral indicators. So those ones are the C to B transitions, evaluation timelines, reevaluation timelines. And then the 13 is the big desk audit that happens every fall. And that's for our transition. In New Mexico, we have to develop transition plans for any student who has turned 14. So that very well may include some 7th graders in some cases, 8th graders, especially 9th graders. So we have to have that plan in place. So we work, again, diligently with our transition coordinator, all our IEP teams, case managers to get those documents in place and those plans in place and meet with parents and all the stakeholders involved. So that's what those compliance ones are. I can't think of what 9 is off the top of my head because 10, 11, and 12 and 13 are the most common.
Thank you.
Can I ask how many overdue IEPs does the district have as of today?
As of today,
Mhm.
none that I'm aware of.
There's no overdue IEPs?
There may be some that were parent request. There may be some that we had to extend timelines, but again, there's coding with each one. So overlooked, disregarded, no. So, and each one is taken on an individual basis. So.
And who is the district's gifted education teacher?
So that is now, there is not a gifted education teacher. This year, gifted is not included in our reporting as they're moving forward and they're removing gifted from the special ed department's responsibility. So in our district, we do not have anybody who is certified gifted teacher. The guidance was given to assign it to a special education teacher. So we have special education caseload managers for our gifted students.
Okay, so I'm assuming if there is not a gifted education teacher, the IEP would reflect That those services are not being provided by a gifted education teacher, rather a special education teacher.
So for clarification, gifted education teachers are special education teachers.
You don't need a special certification from the state to be considered gifted?
You need a special education credential to have the gifted
To
credential.
be able to obtain the gifted.
Yes.
So it would be above just the
It's
SPED.
an additional.
It's an
credential.
additional certification.
But
So
it
the district
is-
doesn't have one right now. And
But it-
so there should not be an IEP that reflects that services are being provided by a gifted education teacher. It should state special education teacher because there is a difference, right?
No, there's a special education teacher, and the guidance is to assign it to the special education teachers. If you have a specific,
Well, so you just said they need a certification above what they
I
have
did
as a
not say that.
SPED.
what I said was to serve gifted students in
Mhm.
our case, and clarification was provided. And if this is something different that I'm called to present, I will need to gather my data because I do have guidance from the PED regarding special ed and gifted. But a special education teacher can be a case manager and provide case management instruction to a gifted student. That's what I'm saying.
So that's not the technical manual that's on the PED website. It's the newer information.
Yes, it's
Okay.
from the new department head from the PED.
Okay. And who is on our gifted advisory committee? How many members do we have?
I don't know.
Do we have a gifted advisory committee?
No, not currently.
Okay. And that is required by statute, correct?
Yes.
One last question. Can you explain to the board what manifestation determination review is?
Yes. So when a child is or a student is out of the district or removed from their LRE, least restrictive environment, for more than 10 days, and there is a pattern of behavior that contributes to that removal, the team has to meet and determine that it was or was not a cause of their disability. And so then that drives placement. Again, it's not a one size fits all. We review each case, each team reviews each case with the team members to decide placement, programming, and just further if a child is removed and it is part of their disability, then the child must be returned to the LRE immediately, and then they cannot be disciplined in that manner as far as removal. If it's there's an egregious offense that requires removal, then the district has the responsibility to provide education in whatever manner the IEP committee deems necessary. And again, it looks different for each student.
I have a question regarding the certified gifted instructor. How long, when was the last time we had one? And
Last school year, we don't have one as of August.
as of August
to
this year,
October.
okay, August this year, that person or position. Okay,
And we do not have anybody certified. Right.
and it's anticipated that the requirement's going to change, and that's why we're not looking for one?
No, I put out emails to several special ed, well, all our 13 special ed teachers to see if they'd be interested in seeking certification in gifted education. And so far, nobody has indicated that they're interested.
So is it an FTE that is a standalone in terms of, is that something that we can hire for?
We can hire for that if we find a gifted educator for the number of students. It's a small number of students that we have. Again, gifted is an unfunded mandate, so it would have to be just funded by operational funds. So
Unfunded mandates are common with
Mhm.
government.
So we would-
So
we would
it's
have
the
to do that.
criteria is the statute.
right, So we would have to do that, just so you guys are aware, but it's for a small number of students. So the
Yes.
referrals are very slim. I think in the past 3 years, we've had 5 total referrals for gifted evaluations.
But we have them is the point. And the
Yes.
requirement is that this needs to be provided. And I'm curious as to why we're not, if we've already asked the eligible people here if they want to pursue that certification. I'm curious as to why we haven't gone out to try to fill that position, given that we have people that meet that requirement.
And again, I reached out to the PED for specific guidance. And again, if I can be put on the agenda, I can present that guidance and things like that, because I do not have it in front of me.
Well, Mrs. Ager, aren't you a sped teacher? So are you, I mean, I'm just putting it out there since we're talking about this. I mean, like,
I'm qualified. I don't do confidence. I'm counting down 3 years. There's 3, I'm retiring at 36.
So- but could you resend the email? I'm just like following up since I know
I
you're
will.
a sped teacher. I appreciate that. Thank you.
And could we also get a gifted advisory committee going, since that is required by statute?
Are there any more questions on that part of the special ed report? If not, we're moving on to Equity Council.
Equity Council. I met with the NMPED outreach Equity Council representatives on Tuesday, September 27th at the Silver Business Center. And so there were districts there from Deming, Hatch, even Las Cruces came down, some of their charter schools, Cliff, and so, and a charter school from Deming as well. And what it was outreach to see where we were with our Equity Council efforts. Everybody was at a developing phase, so they have not formulated the Equity Councils. We received more information on what they should look like and how we should proceed. The goals for the state are to at least complete 2 of the 4 required components, which are either to complete the district readiness assessment, which we all decided that we would not be ready at that point to do that. Develop a culturally and linguistic readiness framework, complete an advisement packet, or develop the Equity Council strategic plan. So that's what the PED has put out for this year, that each council will at least complete 2. And it's very doable, the timeline they presented. So with that, I had already kind of gathered names and made preliminary contact, but most of my contacts were highly skewed to one group, and we need to concentrate on the 4 groups represented in the Yazi Martinez lawsuit. And so I'm going back and rethinking what the Equity Council needs to look like. So next week I will have a meeting, an informational meeting of the members to talk about equity versus equality, go over just the general plan for next steps and what we need to do as a group. This group should include some students that are articulate and can voice concerns and be representative of needs and our culture and our community as well. So I will have that to you guys next time, but I'm going to be sending out some invitations here. Wednesday we're running reports, so probably Thursday I'll start sending them out, and I plan to have our first meeting next Wednesday, and so I'll send out an invite for that. Okay.
And of 2 of the 4 that you mentioned, have you identified the 2 that you think we can have done?
So I think with all our group and who we're starting, the readiness assessment, we may be able to do that by the end of the year, but that involves disaggregating data. Our data for the high-risk groups, our EL kids, our students with IEPs, our Native American population, and of course our economically disadvantaged. And so we really have to have good data around their performance, education performance, their behaviors, any kind of disciplinary referrals, any kind of, just social emotional acclimation. And then also funding around those groups and how they're funded, even in comparison with other student groups, and how they receive anything from interventions to access to different programs, after school programs. So it is a big beast, that readiness assessment, that we have to have a lot of data before we even attempt that survey. So that one, we may or may not be ready by the end of the year. The framework, I think, is doable because a lot of our, all of our schools have DASH plans and educational plans, and I think we can develop a framework to include our population. So I think that one's doable, and definitely an advisement packet. And so the advisement packet would be a key thing, that if we had a group of individuals that said, yep, this is where we want to, go to the board and say, this is the advisement packet we want to fill out. This is the issue we want to hang our hat on for this year. So I think there's a couple of things that are doable with that equity council.
What year did the New Mexico Public Education Department mandate that school districts have equity councils?
That information I do not know. This was assigned to me at the beginning of this year, so I've been doing research. I know it is part of the Yazzie Martinez lawsuit. I know they're doing a lot of outreach and response, and so that information I do not know.
All I was just gonna say is that I mean, just my own comment, I know like the community, we talk about, we're Cobre Indians, and we talk that we have indigenous curriculum, and we do not. We talk about how we talk of the history of the area and our indigenous and First Nations people, and there's nothing. So, I mean, to me, if we're really gonna say that and hang our hat on that and be who, Cobre Indians, that should be a big, and not only with the culture and the history, but the language as well.
This item is put on the agenda at the request of Ms. Murillo, and I believe it is something that should be a repeat item on the agenda at least once a month.
Right. I had made a note that we were expected to have the equity council put together by this month, and that's why I asked for it to be on here. But from what I gather, it has not been put together.
Right, and that was the plans. And so again, the leaders, the PED leaders came the 27th. So I asked Dr. Spalletta if I could have some time to go to meet with our PED leaders, get guidance. Again, I think they really redirected all of us. We were a little bit off on what we thought we should be doing. And so I think moving forward, we're in a better position to move forward now.
Another question? Any other questions? Okay, so now we shall move on to item 9, Superintendent's report. And first item, let's see. First item is the entry plan.
So I've been working on the second phase of my entry plan. Had several community meetings last week. Several of you board members were there. We had a community meeting with Cobre High School parents and community members. This week it'll be at San Lorenzo members area. I've had multiple student voice forums, and I've put that data in your packet so you can see the community meeting, this listen and learn meeting from Cobre High School, or that was at Cobre High School, because there was parents from other schools there also, but there's the questions and kind of a summary of what was said at that meeting. So I've done the same thing with the student voice forums. You can see in your packet, there's Snell Middle School. Again, I'm going to be summarizing all of this at the end of my entry plan. And so I've also had staff meetings at Hurley Elementary, Central Elementary, and today at San Lorenzo, just gathering feedback from the staff at those schools. So I'll be doing that at all of the schools. So that's kind of where I'm at with my entry plan.
On our board website, there is clearly sections that relate to the entry plan. And I'm wondering if this can be posted in those sections so people can see that. I appreciate that it is in the packet, but it's very difficult for someone to just think that to look there.
You know, I think we can make it a PDF, a link underneath of the, or embedded in that entry plan. I think so.
I think it's important. And
Well, I am going to do at the very end, I'm going to summarize everything, but there's no, it's all, yeah, I'm going to be transparent with everybody.
Well, it's also maybe an encouragement for people to attend these. And both myself and Ms. Dean were at the last one, and I was very impressed, and I was very pleased to see the response to it. And very grateful that the public has an opportunity, and students, and to hear the input makes it very real. And there are several things that were discussed there that hopefully we can address before we get to the point of compiling the data.
So I have been addressing the urgent matters, but the other ones I am waiting till I compile all of them at the end.
I have a quick question. It says college prep for concern with Cobre High School. Does Cobre High School offer advanced placement classes, AP classes?
I'm not sure about AP classes. Which comment were you looking at?
On the Cobre High School Community Listen and Learn. One of the concerns is college prep.
So I can speak to that.
You
One of
remember
the-
that?
Yeah, one of the parents was just talking about that her child didn't, like before prior years, they would get together as a senior or junior and they would get them prepared to apply for colleges, how to write the essays, how to do the scholarships, stuff like that. And she was saying that her child didn't get any of that. And so your daughter even said the same thing. She said, nobody got that. And that at the time that whoever was in charge of that nobody had the opportunity to do that. And so they were applying at colleges their senior year in the spring. And so it's already too late by then. And so they hadn't done a lot of the paperwork and the pre-work. And so parents who already had college educations knew how to do this and were supporting their kids, but the kids who didn't have that had nothing. And so that was really a big concern. And so I even stepped in if somebody needed help, like contact me, if individually, or we could set up a meeting once a week. And students who are interested can come in and we can look at what's going on and help them out. Because I think that's, I don't know what the issue is, but that's a big deal for our students who are going, on.
That is an immediate thing that I have already addressed with the high school principal. So you'll definitely see some.
And also with Western, I had I guess he would be community outreach faculty member at Western reach out to me and said that he had wanted to go to Cobre High to have a college night to explain the FAFSA and how to apply, but he was turned down by the administration, and not this year, prior. And we met with Dr. Shepard, and hopefully that partnership can help us in that area.
Those are the same comments I've received for the last 4 months. So I've been working on that and partnering with the college and military and other partners in the community.
If you'd like to recognize Ms. Yeager from the audience, indicate she has a comment to make.
I'm glad I stayed. I can speak to you as far as a teacher as well as a parent. My daughter was a student during the COVID period, and a lot of the information is out there. It's whether your child chooses to reach out to you to get it. When my daughter was there, her senior year, we were still under COVID. There was a system. Western did offer to help them. Parents were supposed to show up with their tax information at Western, and they helped all the students. There were 3 of us there from Cobre High School. Mr. Bennett sends out opportunities for scholarships, not only through NHS, but everywhere. The Davis scholarships, all those. I know they're having a FAFSA day with collaboration with Western here coming up. And I know those things are going on, even the Armory, or whatever, you don't call it Armory, what do you call it? National Guard, they are there constantly. Mr. Kennedy, you can attest to that, as when you were superintendent. We've always had those people here. Now, those kids who don't respond to their emails, or they ignore the flyers, and parents who aren't familiar. You know, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Those things are out there. And I can tell you from a teacher as well as a parent. You know, my daughter, I pay $500 tuition in Mexico State. Those opportunities were presented to her. And as far as PowerSchool, my daughter was a PowerSchool stalker. She was on her grades, she got the notifications. Those things are there. As teachers, I work 3.5 hours every night, grading, IEPs, everything else, and I'm swamped. But we do, and this high school does. And like I said, the National Guard, we had several years to where it was working well, and we had a lot of them who joined the National Guard. And they're there, they were there for your activity day. So they're out there, and they do, but it's, your child needs to take a proactive attempt. I don't know what you want to call it, because the opportunities are there. They're posted on the walls. As a matter of fact, just the other day, I saw FAFSA is on the library wall. I asked Mr. Benya about it because my niece is coming up. He says she's just got to show up. I send out emails. I post it on the walls. Other than grab you by the hand and say, come here, we're going to do this. You know, and like I said, parents who aren't educated don't know. And I try to do that with my niece. Like I said, with my niece, October 1st came around. I told her, get online and get her the FAFSA. You can't. But those things are happening. And I can attest to it, not only as a parent, but as a teacher.
Thank you. And as I said, I attended that session too, and there were comments that they had been provided the list of the scholarships and other resources that could help them identify going forward. But sadly, there was a comment made that a person that had been more instrumental in guiding people into careers and into college had resigned and was no longer going to be here, I guess, at the end of this week, who was very instrumental in getting them involved. And it seemed to be a complete different tier of engagement with this one person that's leaving versus the other resources that were available. And this person pretty much took it on their own. So there's gratitude for that, but there's also the recognition that you're in the school and you see a lot more things that the parents see. And a lot of the parents don't see that availability. And so I think Dr. Spalletta is going in the direction of making sure that the level that we get engaged in with the students is like that of the person that left. Regretfully, that person did leave. I hope that we fill any position that has to do with career guidance with a very aggressive outlook, and it doesn't have to be just college. Certainly, it can be all the other opportunities, and we have plenty of opportunities to go forward in our strategic plan. As when we get to that, of engaging local businesses in our curriculum and in our instruction, and so those things are still to come. But I thank you for your comments. Okay, now that moves us to Title IX and the update to provide timelines for expected milestones.
So I'm going to first, I went to the New Mexico Association of School Board Official or School Business Officials Conference. And that was the main session that I went to, is Title IX. And so I want to review that first, if I could.
Sure.
And then talk to you about the steps we've taken so far with Title IX. So that conference did an overview of Title IX. It was actually a high school girls basketball coach that had retired that led the training for the conference. But Title IX prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex in education programs. It protects from sexual harassment, sexual violence, retaliation, LGBTQ students and staff. And in June of 2022, they proposed some new regulations in K-12 education, sex discrimination in pregnancy, sex-based harassment, parents acting on as representative of students, educational activities, protecting LGBTQ students, and support for students that come forward. Those were kind of the main things that they're proposing with the new regulations. So that was what I got from the training at the conference. And then, so what we've done so far is we've purchased a guide, a comprehensive guide from our attorneys. And so both of our Title IX, well, our investigator and our Title IX coordinator both have that guide, and I have that guide as well. We're going to be looking at some additional trainings. Both of those, the investigator and the Title IX coordinator, have done some trainings through the PED website. We're going to be looking at some additional trainings with our attorneys. And also on New Mexico PED has additional training on Canvas for all staff, for administrators and for staff members. So that's where we're at so far. I've also been in contact with Palms and Associates, and they are the ones that actually led the training in Albuquerque. Susan Garcia led the training, or was part of that training. So as far as any timelines, I don't have any timelines at this point, but we have gotten started with the very comprehensive guide.
You mentioned the coordinator and the investigator. Can you identify those so people know? And is that?
So Mr. Corey, the principal at San Lorenzo, is the Title IX coordinator.
Mhm.
And Annette Acosta, who's at Snell as the Dean of Students, is one of our investigators. And I've done some investigations also this year.
Is that information on our website?
I'm not sure.
Could we make sure that that's on the websites and available at all the schools and communicate in a way of communication so that people can make their concerns known?
Okay.
I actually had a parent approach me regarding something like this. Can I bring it to your attention?
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
Because they had, Snell had cheerleading tryouts. And so there was a group of boys that wanted to try out, and they were told specifically by the coach they were not allowed to try out.
Talk to the principal.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And the language wasn't very kind.
Do we have any status in terms of when we will be making an assessment as to our compliance with Title IX?
Well, I have talked to Stephanie and Carla from our law firm about working with us on some additional trainings. And I've reached out, I just haven't been able to reach her, Ms. Garcia with Palms and Associates, about working with us more also.
Okay.
I met her and talked to her at the training in Albuquerque, and I just haven't had a chance to, I've sent her several emails.
So at this point, we're not at the where the agenda item is to provide timelines. And
I don't think we're at that point yet, no.
when do you think we'll get it to that point?
This is a big project, so
I
I
understand.
think 3 to 4 months easily. I don't see how we can, there's a lot of training involved in this. It's not just those two people and myself, it's a lot of other staff members also.
So alternatively, can we have at the next meeting the steps that you think we need to take before we can make that assessment identified?
Yes.
Okay. And to the public's notice, these two areas, the Equity Council and the Title IX areas, are areas that have been on the back burner at best in previous administrations. And we want to make sure that that's no longer the case. And they become recurring items on our agendas to ensure that. We don't just hear it once and then let it go away. We will hear it every month. And so this is an item that will continue to be a staple in our agenda. And hopefully we'll be meeting, getting to the point of doing not only a recognition of the deficiencies, but a strategy for becoming in compliance with all those areas. That's the goal. But it is going to be a work in progress for some time. It is a monumental task, and as is the Equity Council. And so we'll provide updates as we go along. Are there any other comments? Okay. So now,
I have a couple more things, if that's all
I'm
right.
sorry.
Oh, not on Title IX, but other items on my
Okay,
report.
but Director.
Sure. So Ms. Joyce Barella has become the permanent principal at Central Elementary School. Suzanne Chavita, if you can raise your hand so everybody can see, she's been promoted to the Director of Curriculum and Instruction. And you mentioned Mr. Dane Kennan has been hired as the Interim Operations Director.
Welcome and congratulations. And we all can be a very productive team, and new directions is where we're going. And I appreciate everybody's effort and commitment to the district. These are very responsible positions, and will be the driving force in our changes.
So also in your packet, there's information on a Thanksgiving food drive that we will be working towards, providing non-perished food and also turkeys to some of our needy families in the area. Coming up at the end of October is Trunk or Treat for the whole district at Cobre High School on the 31st. We're planning to have the auction on the 18th. We may have run into a couple of roadblocks, but we're working on that. We should know something more in the next day or two. But the auction for the old vehicles and buses is planned for Tuesday the 18th from 8 to 1.
If I remember correctly, my reading of the requirements are that the posting of the auction has to list the items that are up for auction. And that has to be up for 30 days prior to the auction.
Have to review that and make sure we're in compliance.
Okay.
So we've sent out a survey to the staff. We need to decide if we're going to do the K-5 plus and the ELT programs. So the staff is going to complete that survey by Wednesday, and we need to make a determination on Thursday if we're going to continue doing that for the upcoming school year.
Is there any parent participation in that survey?
No, but we can definitely send it out to the parents as well.
Appreciate that.
And then working with our auditors, at this point, we don't have an audit ready for fiscal year 22. So we're going to need to, in the next couple of days, we're going to need to notify the Office of the State Auditor. And that's because we want to do our special audit. So we're still working on the RFP for that.
Is it the RFP that we're waiting on, or is it permission to go ahead with the special audits? Was there a response to the 1266 letter?
We haven't gotten a response from that.
So is it that we're waiting for that before we go forward with the RFP, or is it just the fact, a matter of that we don't have the RFP ready and haven't sent it out?
The RFP is ready. It's ready to go.
Actually, I think she just did that today, actually.
Yes.
It's been started today. So I think that she wants to award the contract, the procurement contract, November 8th. So we're still going to be behind schedule as far as our audit goes
certainly.
because we're doing the special audit.
And for the public's information, There are some discrepancies that were found in the last audit that may require more in-depth review. However, that in-depth review puts in question as to whether our books represent the actual condition, financial condition. So we will not be able to go start our annual audit, which is actually due to be done by November 15th.
Yes.
And so we're going to request a delay in that until, if we were to go forward with having them begin the annual audit, they would close with an opinion that's saying they cannot assure that our financial statements are correct because of the discrepancies that have been found and we have identified ourselves. And this is all self-identification. This is all self-requested. And so we hope that we can get this RFP out quickly. And if it's ready.
So it was out today. So the timeline is to award the contract on November 8th.
Okay. Can you post the RFP and provide us copies of the RFP? It would have been good to take a look at that before we got to this
It's
point.
posted.
Yes. As of October 10th, it's posted. It's on the website.
You're sure that before anything gets posted, it gets approved going forward?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. It was discussed in the finance committee. And it was on the, wasn't it on the
The
prior?
finance
agenda?
committee
think-
doesn't have the
It was on
authority
prior
to,
agenda, wasn't it?
Yes, I believe on a prior board meeting agenda, it was discussed.
yeah, and none of the committees have an authority to make any approval. They make recommendations to them.
But you know what? I do believe it was on a prior board meeting.
No, we talked about the RFP, but we've never seen it. We've never seen the actual document. Okay,
I have two more things, if that's all right.
sure.
So in your packet also, there's an application for facilities use, the Good News Club.
Mhm.
And then also the last thing, I asked Ms. Barella to talk about the literacy plan. Doesn't have to be approved. It's not an action item, but it's in your packet. Does anybody have any questions about the district literacy plan?
I didn't comprehend it. And there's so much of that that is jargon that I couldn't make sense of it. So
I had a couple of questions. So what % of testing has been completed so far? I know it says that it has 90 days for testing in each area.
So which one are you referring to?
So the LEA overview, right, and it talks about how it talks about the screening first graders, and then it talks about the timeline for completion.
So the dyslexia screening, that's already completed for the dyslexia.
Okay. And then I had another question. So I was reading that, we talked about this in the previous board, is that the Lucy Calkins is not a proven curriculum to help teach language arts, and yet it's still part of the curriculum.
Correct.
And then, looking at the school district's data across the board, my question is, why is it still part of the curriculum at all?
So if you'll notice on the very first page where you were talking about the LEA overview, and it's on the second paragraph, it does say that coding is like Lucy Calkins units of study for the 22-23 school year in the district focus on the document behind the curriculum. So as we phase out,
Oh, yeah.
So on the first page, under the LEA overview, it does say that we have utilized the Lucy Calkins. So our emphasis this year is to adopt a structured literacy curriculum from 3 through 8 because
As I mentioned in the last meeting, we've already adopted for K2 and 9 through 12. So it's there as we're transitioning out of it because some schools may not have anything else to use, and that's what we have available. So as far as where we stand with the curriculum, we are, we've been setting up meetings. We've contacted different districts and contacted some of the vendors. And so we are to the point where we're ready to start having vendors come and present to the staff so they can make decisions about which curriculum we're going to look at for grades 3 through 8. And the other thing that we're going to also look at is supplementing for K through 2 because we do have the Reading Horizon Structured Literacy Curriculum, which is really focusing heavily on the phonemic awareness and phonics, but we also need something to really focus on the reading comprehension and reading fluency. So we're looking for something to supplement that area as well.
And so does this, I was also looking through this, is that there's nothing that identifies as bilingual or TESOL for students who are Spanish speakers, foreign Spanish speakers. So is that something that's part of this language art to transition bilingual students? Or is this just, English speakers across the board?
So I think because we had to use a template that the state has, I don't know that there's anywhere specific that we would add that, but I can go back and look at it and see if there's anything anywhere where we need to go ahead and add that language in there.
And then too, I know we
I'll look
spoke
at it with Ms. Chavita.
we spoke last time about bilingual teachers who are teaching students who are Spanish speakers only.
Mhm.
Are these certified
Yes.
bilingual teachers? They're
Yes.
actually state certified?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm. Yes.
And they
And-
take a
and-
state language test?
Yes.
Okay.
And they have that endorsement on their license.
Okay.
And since you asked about that, we'll just give you an update on that as well. So we are to the point where we've already had presentations by the vendor, and so we're meeting tomorrow. And so teachers will give us their final, yes, this is where we want to go, no, this is not where we want to go. And then we'll come and present to the board as well as to what curriculum the teachers are looking at adopting, because the high school already has a bilingual curriculum. So we're looking at K through 5 and 6 through 8.
Will there be vertical alignment between the schools of which curriculum they're using? Or are they all going to be using different curriculums?
So in, as far as bilingual,
Yes.
or, so we were looking at using the same curriculum at the middle school as the high school is using. That company, well, it's a CSEDISA curriculum, but SNOW is a little hesitant because of the way that the high school is using level 1 and 2 or level 2 and 3. I can't remember exactly. So the way that it was geared, the middle school is leaning more towards a different curriculum with Vista Higher Learning as opposed to continuing with what the high school is using. But I'll know tomorrow for sure which way they want to go. But I think they're not going to go with what the high school is using. So there would be consistency with K through 5 and 6 through 8. It's all under Vista Learning, what they're looking at right now. And so the way that the units are presented at the elementary would be similar to how they're presented at the middle school. So the high school would probably be a little bit different from K through 8.
So on the literacy plan, it does say that over the last 4 years, Cobre has utilized Lucy Calkins. But in the district curriculum list, it says that Lucy Calkins was not adopted until 2020. That was not 4 years ago. And so my concern is if that somebody double checked this information, that it's reviewed, because that concerns me about this template. Also, can you tell the board what is a curriculum?
So basically the standards really is what drives our curriculum. Any materials that we pick are resources that support the standards. So what you had the last meeting in the district curriculum list, those are resources to support meeting the standards.
So these are, so where it says core curriculum, these are resources. These aren't core curriculum that are listed here.
Well, any adopted materials that we select, those would be resources to meet the standards, which basically drive the curriculum.
But it wouldn't be a complete curriculum that has everything, because you can't say that Nifty Thrifty 50, which teaches spelling and
Right, it's
vocabulary,
not comprehensive.
that's not a curriculum.
It's not
No.
comprehensive
Then why is it on this list?
because those are materials that are being utilized.
So should there be a differentiation between what are resources and supplements versus what is core curriculum?
We can look at going back and doing that and put, like you said, core and then supplemental. That would probably make better sense.
You have a concern about the coordination not being coordinated. If one school has a unilateral capacity to make a choice of a curriculum that doesn't feed necessarily into the next school, is that the discretion that we allow, or is it that we want to have a coordinated curriculum throughout the school?
I think we want to have a coordinated curriculum, but we haven't had a chance to sit down and talk about this. I mean, we have a new director of curriculum also, and so the three of us will be meeting daily for the next 3 weeks. We've got a plan to do that.
And this document is to serve as a pathway of our curriculum, and does it reflect inconsistencies with the curriculum as we go from middle school to high school?
As far as on this plan, I'm not.
What I'm wanting to know, basically, does that commit us to something that has already been selected that may be not in a fashion that leaves?
No, because it does have resources needed, but we could look at possibly adding a statement for grades 3 through 8 is additional core curriculum as adopted by district for 22-23 school year.
But I'm particularly concerned about the middle school's discretion to,
On the bilingual.
yes. And that would apply to any curriculum, is if there's some deviation from a current, from a curriculum that is going to be ultimately passed on to the next school, that it be coordinated, that no one has the discretion to choose an alternative. And that we need to make sure that our students go through consistent instruction, not based on what school they come from.
And like I say, the decision has not been made yet. Those are things that we're going to be looking at tomorrow when we meet with the team.
Okay. Thank you.
That concludes the superintendent portion report.
Okay, so going on to new business. We've already covered the report from the high school staff. Now we look at report from board members regarding the New Mexico School Board Association region meeting number 8, which was in Lordsburg a week ago. And I attended that meeting, as well as did board member Terrazas. It was well attended. It was the first region meeting held in person since COVID had hit, and it covered a number of different areas. Is there any particular area that you want to talk about?
No, just we talked about the school resource office, excuse me, where there is federal funding that the district attorney, Michael Renteria, is working with his staff to be able to go out and look for federal funding to get certified school resource officers for his district, right, which is Luna, Hidalgo, and Grant County. So he's going to work diligently with his staff and find the monies to be able to supply his district with a certified law enforcement school resource officer.
And his district is the district court number 6, which includes Grant County, Hidalgo, and Luna County. I don't think it included that, Catherine.
No.
No, okay, and so he's working with all the schools in these 3 counties this community service officer would be an armed individual with police training, police certified, that will be made available to the districts, and it could be more than one. It could he hopes to generate a plan that would be one for every school, but at a minimum, we're looking at one, and we're going to try for as many as we can get. Certainly, Mimbres would be one that we would like to see to get one by itself because of the distance. And this would be federally funded. There are districts that have it in place, but they're using their own funds now to pay for that. And he's hoping by, I think, April of next year to make an application and see if it's approved by the federal government. And he's very encouraged by the availability of the money that exists and the support that he has already put together. We were the last district I think he visited to put this into place, and everybody else is in support of it. In that, the other most important, I think the other important session that was to talk about our plans of what we do in the case of an emergency of say a shooter or whatever the case is, where the students are endangered. And that was given previously, I understand, in the reunification presentation that was made. And in this case, it was repeated, and this is the first time I heard it. And it is an area that we need to spend a lot of time putting together, and we need to move that higher on the priority. That's another thing I want to see put on the agenda as a recurring item on a monthly basis. Certainly its importance warrants that. But we have nothing in place, and the current sheriff, as I understand, has taken away the remote locations in Cliff and Mimbres, which makes me very concerned about the response time that it would take under an immediate need circumstance. So we're going to be working together as a school and probably coordinating with Silver as well. So Dr. Spoleta has made a very good tie to the neighborhood school districts that will allow for consistent understandings of things to do. This may include, unfortunately, we don't have much in terms of video equipment out at the schools. That's something that we hopefully can address in the immediately as the money becomes available. I know we do have a system that's up in Snell. It's just a question as to why isn't it working. So we hope that gets looked at. The other part is too that we have a technology grant that the bonds will be sold, not grant, but bonds. They'll be sold at, I believe, in spring of next year, which will provide us anywhere between $400,000 to $600,000 for technology. So that is something that's going to be a discussion on how we prioritize that. There were other presentations that were made by the school districts, by the New Mexico School Board Association, including funding things related to funding. And there was a word of caution by an ex-senator from Luna County, John Arthur Smith, that prescribed some caution, saying that we are in a bumper crop in terms of the funding that's available right now. This is at a very high level. Expect that to dry out, he says, and to go cautiously to make sure that we do not do great big lump sum things and then end up dry in the coming years. So he expressed the strategy to go cautiously with our expenditures. There were several other presentations, including one that I regret not asking a question to, and that was one having to do with the New Mexico Athletics Association. I failed to ask the question, what are we doing about the injuries that are being sustained on the football fields? And Friday we had an incident here at Cobre, and that's something that I do intend to bring up the next opportunity that I have in a forum that includes that body, or write a letter just as a parent. But There's a number of changes that have been made regarding participation in athletics. And so he relayed that information. We had CES updates, which is basically our contract, our purchasing agreements. We had an update with that. Otherwise, we had a good chance to do a little bit of interaction with our sister district, which is Silver City, that was sitting next to us. There was a question that one of the members of the Silver City School District, the board asked regarding insurance. There was Albuquerque gets to negotiate its insurance rates separate from the rest of the state, and therefore can get a much better rate on insurance. And the question is, why can they do that, and why aren't they a collaborative part of the rest of the state? So collectively, we can get a better rate. And so that was a discussion. That was a question that I thought was worth bringing over here and encouraging that we sign on to having that direction followed. Other than that, it was a lot of celebratory things that the School Board Association is known for, which recognizing different people for contributions that they've made. And it was good to have representation there. And we look forward to the next meeting. We'll see how that goes. Is there any questions about that meeting? Okay, then we'll move on to the next item, which would be the district safety plan. Ms. Davis.
I was gonna say Mr. Cannon, but you're not ready for it yet.
Like 2 days.
I know, we're gonna give him a break today. So I just wanted to say that on our safety committee, on September the 13th, Palms and Associate started conducting inspections throughout our schools. And so they were looking mostly at our grounds, our like roof and everything like that concerned the grounds. So they did come and completed that. Also on September the 20th, we did have our school reunification tabletop, and that included Silver and quite a few other entities like the clubs, entities, and other key players that came to the Grant County Business Conference Center. We were able to take our equipment over there to see how it was going to run and how the internet was going to work there in collaboration with the Grant County Business and Conference Center and with Silver Schools. And that went really well. We were able to set up, I think Silver set up 10 computers, we set up 7. We already have a code for them to get onto our PowerSchool. They have a code to give us to get on our PowerSchool. Everything went really good. There was a little bit of glitches at the beginning, but we were able to sit with the tech team and their tech person and get that going and everything. We were able to run the transportation, the buses, to see if they were able to make the turn, go through that gate to let kids off, and they were able to do it without any difficulty. They actually got some of their teachers to ride the bus from Silver and drop them off, and that went really smooth as well. Then we did have everybody break up into this different staging areas. So the area where the parents would come in and do a check-in, the area where the students would be staged at, and then the reunification. They walked through the whole thing of starting from, if you're a parent, what do you do to get to your child? They went through the whole walkthrough. They would come into where we had the computer set up. They gave us the ticket. So they kind of timed it to see how long it was taking for each one. And it was about 8 minutes to get them from the beginning to get them reunited with their student, which was pretty good for our first time to see how everything worked. And so our next steps would be now to come back to our district, meet together, have conversations, and see if we can do a mock trial with all our staff, so they also know what that will look like and everything. And so we hope to get that going on our side and figuring out a date that we can do that we have staff development. That way we don't have to cancel schools or anything like that, and get all our staff updated with that. And then the third piece is our safety plans. we did get the new template from the State Department on what needs to happen with each individual school safety plan. Mr. Corey decided that he wanted to spearhead and compare it to last year's. So that's what he's doing right now, is going through the new template and going through our past year's template and looking at to see what the differences are. And then once he gets that completed, he's going to meet with all the principals, and they're going to go together and walk through what needs to be updated at each site. And hopefully we have to have it submitted by December. So that's where we're at with that. Any questions?
Members have questions? Of course I do.
One. No.
Did the hospital participate in this?
No, we didn't have anyone from the hospital.
So is there an established,
Did we have someone? Okay. And I don't know if we did on that because I got pulled to go help tech set up our PowerSchool, so I didn't get to kind of see who was there, but I know there was quite a few different entities that we had.
so the line of communication was established as to how it would happen in the event that there was a But in the reunification part of that, the information relayed to the people at the convention center about who is injured, who's injured, where they're at, and what. I'm sorry, I'm reminded again. Can you come up here?
We could put you on the spot.
So the reason the hospital was involved was because,
Mr. Medina.
yeah, my name is Dilo Medina. I'm the director of EMS at Gila Regional Medical Center. It's just the biggest part is having, one, the ability to pass on health information. The other part is in case somebody is fatally wounded at this incident, they'll be able to have a better idea of who's able to go home, who's not going home, and so forth. And that way it gives us a better idea of, it's basically ruling out by who's not at the bus and reunificating with their parents. But the hospital is involved. I've been involved in a couple of meetings with them, the fire department, the associated fire department, law enforcement agencies, but yeah, we have been involved in it. Okay. Any questions? Of course.
Any questions?
So I have a question. If a student, turned off. Okay. If a student hears that from another student that they're joking around about shooting up the school, what steps are there for students to report that? And what happens to that student? Is it discipline or is it mental health services? What is the process for that?
On that one, Serena, we have, like I said, we have our new guidance from the State Department on what we need to have in our safety plan and in place and what needs to happen at each one of the school sites. So I'm not sure what the updates are. Like I said, Mr. Corey's the one that is going through and seeing what we need to have in place or what we have to update. And I was not part of doing the safety plans in the past. This was a piece that I took on right now because we didn't have a director of operations and transportation in place. And so right now I'm learning alongside of what needs to be in place and what we need to do to ensure that kids know how to report those things, because I know sometimes they're afraid to do it, but we need to have something in place for them, as well as knowing what to do, because some of them might not need discipline. They might need to have some counseling to go with it. So it's just going to be, again, I think on a case-to-case basis of what the situation is, and then also what the guidance is with the new safety plan that document that came out. So hopefully we'll be able to have more answers for you once we go through the whole thing and see what's in there.
So I think, like, what if a student, this happens tomorrow? So what's the protocol for that?
So whatever the schools have in their safety plans right now, I know most of the time the kids do report it to the principal or to another student, or even to an adult. And then I know that they assess the situation and go from there. So I'm not sure on who makes the call of, because I know at times law enforcement gets involved too. And law enforcement ends up deciding on other things that need to happen to the student when they get involved, whereas the school might see it a different. So I know that they have to collaborate in knowing what to do.
Is there a way to anonymously report in the district? Because I know sometimes students might not want to tell on their friend because they don't want their friend to get in trouble. Is there a way to anonymously report threats of a shooter?
That I know of, no. I know that we have it for the bullying line, but I don't know if there's anything that's in place at any school. Like I said, I haven't read what's in the past safety plans. If there is anything that explains that piece on how they can report anonymously or to whom.
That might be something the district could look into.
I would ask that there's an emphasis on prioritizing having that anonymity provided. The other part, when we talked about the reunification plan, we talked about the logistics of having to go all the way to Silver versus the possibility of using what used to be the armory there in Santa Clara. Was there any discussion about that?
There was some discussion, and again, the armory doesn't lend itself to have the different rooms to separate people and the capacity to do that. Now, if per se the conversation did happen with San Lorenzo being so far away, that would probably be a good place maybe for San Lorenzo, because it's away from the community, and what you want to do is remove it away from the community so you can structure things better. And that would probably maybe be an option for maybe San Lorenzo, and for the rest of the schools if they go to the community center there in Silver. And so I know that Mr. Grant, the one that's been spearheading everything with us and helping us out, had said that we are trying to look at another location and seeing if it allows itself to secure, for the transportation, to separate the kids from parents, so we can have 2-3 different rooms to be able to hold the kids, to hold the parents, and another area to reunify them. Because if it's just one big open room, it would just be chaos.
One of the considerations that lends to that logic is that they're talking about both schools or all schools in the county being affected. But the scenario is quite likely that it's going to be a singular school, and those logistics don't then present to be a problem. And the logistics of a parent having to go back and forth to Silver, or that might be a bigger problem than the logistics posed of a single unit, a single school being housed, using that in response to a single school event. So I hope that continues to be a discussion, knowing that the scale of things that we're looking at right now are huge, and we're looking at the whole thing, and that may happen. So I appreciate that that's happened, but if we can take consideration into small scales, things that would make more sense for the community. Any other questions?
Not a question, but I know we talked about, I mentioned it last meeting, is that especially part of the safety plan to have fentanyl and Narcan training for all teachers and have it on site, because I think that'd be an important part of our safety plan as well. And just so that it is available and anybody can access it and is trained in it with the incidents that have happened recently.
I think that needs to be not only in the safety plan, but in the daily operation scenario, that we should provide that at the school under a basis of an individual being identified as probably having taken that an immediate response, not to do it only on a big event. But that could be a singular event, or it could be just a few people. But that needs to be present at all schools. Okay, well, now it's time for public input for anything that's on or off the agenda.
Mr. President, board members, I just want to come introduce myself. I'm Eloy Medina, and I'm running for County Commissioner, District 2. I've been putting a lot of effort in and meeting with all the key players in what is District 2. You guys have 5 schools in that district. And when I say that, don't think I'm leaving Santa Clara or Central out. But I've been meeting with the mines, with the schools, with the Forest Service, with different groups of individuals in the members area in Hurley and Bayard. And I just want to let you guys know that if I am elected, I will be open and willing to work with you guys, and any resources that we have that we can help you guys out with, we'll be willing to push on. I know that it's an ever-changing world nowadays, and it is important that resources work together. And a school board, a county commission, a city council, those are resources that have to work together. In order to succeed, we have to support each other nowadays. One, make sure the safety and safety plan is a big, huge thing. That the county does support that and make sure that they are involved in those kind of things and understand the safety plan. The officers in the county understand the safety plan. But I am, like I said, I'm running for County Commissioner District 2. I ask for your support, and I am willing to work with you in any way I can. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Is there any input offline? No comments online, or I should say online. Okay. There's any other comments? Anybody wants to? Then we will go into the next item, which is executive session. And the executive session will be limited to personnel matters and personally identifiable student information as permitted under sections 10-15-1, paragraph H, bullet number 2 and 4 of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act, specifically so that the superintendent can update the board and legal counsel can advise regarding investigations of specific student disciplinary actions, corrective actions taken regarding the same, and including related personnel actions at Cobre High School to discuss student safety, bullying, altercations, and altercations at Snell Middle School. Sorry about that. And for that, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So move.
And a second,
Second.
we'll do a roll call vote for going to closed session. Ms. Dean.
Aye.
Myself, Gilbert Wadiana, aye. Ms. Murillo.
Aye.
Mr. Terrazas.
Aye.
Vote is unanimous. We'll be going into closed session. So open session is adjourned at this time, and the time is 7:38. We have met in in closed session to discuss limited personnel matters and personally identifiable student information as permitted under sections 10-15, paragraph H, bullets 2 and 4 of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act, specifically so that the superintendent can update the board and legal counsel can advise regarding the investigation of specific student disciplinary matters and corrective action taken regarding the same, including related personnel actions at Cobre High, and discuss student safety, bullying, and altercations at Sell Middle School. The conversations strayed along those lines, and we did not go deviate from that description. We did not take any action in closed session, and we're now coming back into open session. I'd entertain a motion to come back into open session.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
I'll take any discussion. I'll take a roll call vote. Ms. Dean?
Aye.
Myself, Guadiana, aye. Ms. Murillo?
Aye.
Mr. Terrazas?
Aye.
Okay, all present voted in favor of coming back into open session. The motion is unanimous. We're now in open session. There are no other items on the agenda, and so I can entertain a motion for adjournment. Meeting is adjourned at 8:24.